Let's have a look at week 6, question 5, and this is the question involving marginal revenue product. So if we just examine those words for a moment, we have the words marginal, which we know to mean derivative. We have revenue, which is money earned, and we have product, which is the result of a multiplication. So we're going to be looking at that type of function. So let's see what our marginal revenue product function looks like. So we have R prime is equal to P plus X times the derivative of the P function, so P prime at X. All of that multiplied by the derivative of X with respect to N. Okay, so where do we start? So if we look at all the pieces of that function that we're going to need, we're able to pull those pieces out, deal with them, take the derivative of them, whatever we're required to do, and then put those pieces back into that marginal revenue product function. Okay, so the first term we're looking at is P, and we have P right here. The second we're looking at is X, and I'm going to advise that we just leave X as a variable right there. And then we've got P prime with respect to X, so we're going to be looking at the derivative of P, and then X prime with respect to N, and we've got an X equals 5N function here, so we'll be taking the derivative of that function. Okay, so let's see how we can do all those things. So if we're looking at P prime, for example, we've got P is equal to 600 over root X. And we're going to remember that root X can be written as X to the 1/2, but here we have root X in the denominator, so we can represent that equally by having it written as X to the negative 1/2. Okay, so I think that might help us here. Okay, so that's just writing P in a different form. And we're going to need P prime, or the derivative of this function. So we're looking at, it's a power, right? Simple power rule. So P prime is going to be equal to 600 times negative 1/2 times X, and then it's going to be X to the negative 1/2 minus 1. It's going to be to the negative 3/2, right? Okay. So let's tidy that up a bit. P prime is going to equal negative 300 X to the negative 3/2. Okay. X, I said just leave it as X, so that's going to be a variable. And we need X prime, so we know that X is equal to 5N. I'm looking for the derivative of X with respect to N. So X prime will be just 5. Okay, so let's have a look at how we're going to combine all of these terms into the marginal revenue product function. So we have R prime is going to equal, big bracket, P, which is 600 over root X. Just taking that from the information we're given, plus X times P prime at X, which we know is negative 300 X to the negative 3/2, and all of that is multiplied by X prime, X, okay, that's 5. So let's multiply the 5 by all of these terms. First, we need to expand this in the bracket, yeah? Or simplify, rather. So R prime is going to be 600 over root X plus, now we've got X times negative 300 X to the negative 3/2. And we're going to remember, I'm going to give you a little thought bubble up here. When you have any exponents that have the same base, and you are multiplying them together, such as we are here, you can add the exponents. So x squared times x cubed would equal x to the 5th. So how does that help us here? We've got x to the 1, and we're multiplying it by x to the negative 3 halves. Okay, so you're going to have, I'm just going to rub this out because that's going to be a negative sign, negative 300. So x, it's going to be x to the negative 1/2. And all of that is going to be times 5 still. So remember, we can write that as something over root x, in this case negative 300 over root x. So our prime is now going to be 600 over root x minus 300 over root x, and all of that times 5. So let's simplify in the bracket first. We have 600 over root x minus 300 over root x. So that's going to give us 300 over root x. And multiplied by 5, that's going to be 1500 over root x. Okay? And at this point, I'm going to be looking at what the x value is here for substituting. So we're told that x equals 5n right here. We're told that n equals 20 here. So x is going to be 5 times 20, or 100. So now we're going to substitute x is 100 into the marginal revenue product function. We're going to determine a value. We're going to do that on the next page. So now we're being asked to evaluate the marginal revenue product at x equals 100. So we're going to substitute our x value here for 100. And we know that 100 is a perfect square, so to take the square root of 100 is 10. So it's 1500 over 10, which equals 150. So what does that mean exactly? If we're looking at the marginal revenue product according to the question, it says that that is the change in revenue when a manufacturer hires an additional employee. And here you have the number of employees at 20, and it is equal to 20. And so we're looking at the hiring of an additional employee when production level is at 100 items will increase revenue by $150.